Good afternoon, Santa Clara. I'm Mayor Lisa Gilmore. After a brief break, we are excited to return for the first time in 2021. Thank you for joining us today on Mayor at Noon, where you will hear about the City of Santa Clara, how we have responded to the COVID-19 pandemic, and viewers will have an opportunity to ask questions during today's show. I am so excited to have Jody Muirhead, President of the Santa Clara Unified School District Board of Trustees, on our show today. Welcome, Jody.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here today, Lisa.
Thank you. Jody is not only a governing board member, she is also a parent and a former teacher in the Santa Clara Unified School District. Since she has been elected, she has worked tirelessly for our students in Santa Clara. And Jody has over 20 years of experience in education and has been an active volunteer in classrooms since her kids started 25 years ago. I can't believe that. She was a teacher for over 8 years and has held board positions, volunteered, and even chaired the district's science fair. Jody has a proven record of working with diverse backgrounds and cultures, the ability to bring people together, and she provides our students with the best possible educational experience. I am pleased to introduce Jody Muirhead to our Mayor at Noon audience today. Welcome, Jody.
Thank you.
So I have a few questions for you, so hopefully you're prepared for this. So here we go. So Jody, obviously you have a very impressive background and a wealth of experience in the community. What finally convinced you to take the plunge, and I'll call it a plunge, and run for public office?
Well, you know, I came to Santa Clara as a software engineer, and that was my background and what I was doing for many years, and then switched to education. After my kids were born, they attended our district schools, starting at Washington Open, ending up at Santa Clara High School, and education just became really important to me, and not just helping my own children, but helping other kids as well, doing a lot of volunteer work. I just got more and more involved. And you know, Santa Clara has a lot of women elected, you know, people who've been elected, so there's a lot of great role models. I just thought that this was a next step, something I could do, something I could give back to our community.
Well, obviously you were very well prepared for it as well with all your experience. So I think that experience really came in handy because a little over a year ago, this world was hit by the COVID-19 virus that has changed the way we live, do business, and educate our children. Tell me about how quickly the school district responded to the health crisis and how you, as a board member, handled some of the tough early decisions that needed to be made.
So I still remember that so clearly. We had parents who were already very concerned and were keeping their kids home, and it came to the point where we had no choice. The county was shutting things down. So we had to pivot very quickly. We knew that kids relied on our meals, so we turned right around and we've delivered to our families over 2.5 million meals since then.
That's unbelievable. 2.5 million?
And 53,000 pounds of produce from our farm, our district farm. So we picked right up with making sure our kids still had food, and we pivoted very quickly. Within 2 weeks, we were offering online instruction. Our district was in such a good place. Santa Clara Unified had made it one-to-one technology already a goal, so we had a lot of Chromebooks already that we were just able to issue out. We bought hotspots. We got trained up on all the platforms online and gave our families resources. So we pivoted amazingly fast, and our staff, just incredible the amount of work that went in those first couple of weeks.
I remember talking to your superintendent very early in the beginning when she was trying to make the decision about closing the schools and having the students stay at home. And it wasn't easy because, as I know by watching your district board meetings, everyone has lots of opinions whether they schools or not. So I really admired what you did in making those quick early decisions because they were tough.
Well, I have to tell you, when you have parents involved
Yes.
about their kids,
Oh,
they're
yeah.
passionate. So, so there's there's a lot of
Yes.
community involvement, and they let us know what they think.
Right, so which leads me to my next question, because the school now has been in session for the last, I think it's 2 weeks, in some kind of a hybrid model of at-home, in-class learning. Can you explain to our audience what has changed for our students with this sort of hybrid model of what's happening?
Yeah, we started to come back 2 weeks ago when we moved into the orange tier, and we wanted to make sure that the kids who were the most affected by the pandemic got the first chance to come back. So we looked at, our foster and homeless kids, low socioeconomic children, kids who were just struggling at home because they didn't have stable Wi-Fi or a quiet environment at home to do their work. Kids who were struggling in classes or not attending at all. So that was the first tier of kids. We wanted to make sure that we offered space for those kids to come in. And then we extended it beyond there if there were other families who really needed and wanted their children to come back. And those children who are back, about a third of them district-wide are back. They're going every day. In elementary, it's 5 days a week. In secondary, it's 4 days a week and then 1 day at home. And they're working in class with the students who are at home. So the teachers are simultaneously teaching both the kids in class and the kids at home. That way we didn't have to shuffle teachers. It was pretty as smooth as it can be when you're adjusting schedules like this. We had to adjust like the timing of, we gave kids a little bit more time to get between classes in high school because we had to clean desks and that sort of thing. So there's been some adjustments, but overall, 2 weeks in, it sounds like it's gone really smoothly from the people that I've talked to. And now we're on spring break this coming week.
Yeah,
so.
That's good. So even work for the 2 weeks, get a little break and start again. Mm-hmm. Is Santa Clara Unified the only district using this model for learning? Because I know you're compared to other districts all the time.
We are.
Tell me about that.
Well, yeah, we definitely, parents talk to their friends who have kids in other districts.
Right.
And we hear about that. So there's a whole mix of how you can do hybrid, but there are a number of other districts who are doing it the same way, where some of the kids are in the class, other kids are at home. It's been a way where you haven't had to shuffle kids with new teachers, and I think that was really important to the kids and their parents. They've built these relationships with their class and their teacher, so we didn't want to change that. So a lot of other districts are doing that. We're one of the first, actually, to come back. Some of them waited until after spring break, so they are not back yet. Some of them are even waiting until next school year. So we were ready. We've been planning for this for a long time, and we wanted to get the kids who really needed it back in the classroom.
Oh, that's great. So I've heard a lot of parents talk about this, and I've read certain articles about this, but I know some parents are concerned about how this last year, especially with the pandemic, will affect their child's overall educational experience. And I've heard the term learning recovery. Can you explain what that means?
Sure. We know that we've been offering classes this whole past year, but it's not the same. And some students have done better than others with this model. Honestly, there are some kids who have really enjoyed being at home. There's less drama. They can focus on what they're working on without distraction. So there are.
I know my college-age daughter said, "Mom, this is great. I love being at home. I'm getting straight A's now. I can really concentrate."
Exactly.
So, anyways,
yeah, but that's a minority. I don't think that kids need social interactions, and they need to be around others. They need that help from the teacher can provide in person. So. We really know that there's been learning loss over this past year. So we've got a plan that we're building. The tagline they've been using is reconnect, re-engage, and recover.
Okay.
So as kids are coming back, they're connecting with their schools. We're offering more clubs and social interactions. The social emotional part of it is huge. And then we've got a lot of kids who aren't reading. Probably over a third are not reading at their grade level. Maybe just under a quarter failed a class this year in high schools and middle schools. So those kids we need to really spend extra time on. So we've got programs this spring to work one-on-one with some students where necessary. We've got programs over the summer. We always have a summer program, but we're really beefing it up this year, making it fun. You know, kids won't come to summer school if it's not in some way fun, but having the focus on math and literacy and computer science. We've got a number of computer science classes that are fun and engaging, but also tie into math and literacy. So they have you know, there's the educational academic component. And then we're talking about jumpstart programs in the fall. So like our youngest kids, you know, our kids who are kindergartners this year, they've never been on a campus. And normally there's a lot of time spent at the beginning of kindergarten to acclimate them to a learning environment. Well, we're gonna have to do that as they come into first grade. So we're talking about starting maybe a little bit early, you know, the kinders, the first graders, and getting them acclimated to what a school campus is like.
You know, my sister is a kindergarten teacher at Westwood School, and she told me that kindergarten is all about learning, you know, socialization, being in a classroom, just learning how to go to school and follow rules and things like that. And she told me she felt really sorry for the first grade teachers that are going to get the kindergartners that didn't get that level of, you know, socialization and experience going to first grade. So, you know, it's exactly what you're saying here.
Yeah, and we have a strong wellness program. We've got wellness counselors at every one of our schools to help support our kids, and they've been taking advantage of that all this past year, and it'll continue. So we'll need some strong social emotional programs.
Okay, thank you for that. So some of the most lasting memories most of us have from our childhood is our graduations. So what is in store this year? Because I've heard so many different stories. What's in store for our middle school, our elementary, and our high school graduates this year?
Sure, so I know that all of our kids who are promoting onto new schools or graduating from high school have been waiting, you know, to hear, and with how well the case rates are going down, we're now in the orange tier, we're approaching the yellow tier. It looks really good to be able to have an in-person graduation. So I'm really hopeful. We're still, you know, looking at all the guidance that's coming in. That's one thing we've had to do, is always look at the guidance from all these different places to see what we can do, but it looks like we'll be able to have in-person promotion and graduation ceremonies.
That would be pretty tremendous, because they've worked so hard all these years to look forward to something, some little bright spot at the end of this, you know, bleaker time during the pandemic. So let's cross our fingers and hope that happens.
Yeah, keep staying safe.
Very good. So let's talk about one of the most popular programs that we provide together as a joint partnership between the City of Santa Clara, our police department, and the school district, which is our DARE program. And for those who don't know what that means, it's our drug abuse resistance educational program that is provided to, I believe, every fifth grader in the school district. So we weren't able to provide this valuable program this year. I was hoping you might have some ideas on how we can provide a similar program to those students who missed out this last year or year and a quarter on the DARE program.
Yeah, it's going to be tricky because, of course, those fifth graders are moving on to other schools, right? They promote up to middle school. So we have every intention, you know, all the contracts are in place to continue DARE next year. So we're excited about doing that. We're going to have to see, and for those students who missed it, we might have to do something, you know, it might look different. There's a lot more than just drug abuse resistance in that program.
I want you to talk about that, because it's so much more than just drugs and alcohol.
Right, there's so much more. There's a whole anti-bullying component. Part of it is just getting to interact with a police officer and knowing that they're real people.
In a positive way,
In a positive way, absolutely. So there's a lot to this program. It's not just focused on drugs. That's a component of it, but there's so much more. And so we have health curriculums, you know, that's part of our health curriculum for fifth grade. We also have health curriculums in middle school. So we'll have to look and see how we can integrate that in for kids that didn't get that program.
Right, they even talk about bullying and even online bullying and other things that modern issues that our students have to deal with. And I really think that the 5th grade is such a really important time in these students' lives, right before they go to middle school, to get this kind of education and preventative advice, especially through our police officers who really provide a wonderful service and are great role models for the children to meet.
It's been a great program to have between the school district and the police department. The Safety Patrol is another one that's been a great program. And
Taylor Carpenter, our CSO.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's very well loved. I've learned that by going to all the Safety Patrol graduations as well.
Right.
I always say he's the most popular person in the school district, I think, at this point.
Yeah,
Besides you, of course, Jody.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's another program that we haven't been able to have this year because we haven't had people dropping off in front of schools.
But that's happening now, though.
It's happening now.
Right.
So we don't have it back quite yet, but I hope that we have it back soon.
Okay, good, because I'm really proud of that program that we provide together between the city and the school district. Another successful partnership our city shared with your district was the distribution of food, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, to supplement weekend meals for the children in our district and our community during this pandemic. I know eventually your district took over the entire program. So tell us, how are you feeding the children now in the school district?
Right, and that's another one where through the pandemic things changed, and we have to rely on the guidance of so many different federal organizations, state organizations, county organizations, and so meals changed throughout the process based on that guidance and what the federal government will pay for, because they pay for a big part of the cost of the meals that we serve. So I'm really, really happy that we were able to pivot so quickly to feeding all of our kids, not just the ones who are on the free and reduced meal program, and even feeding kids who don't even attend our schools. So we didn't ask, we just gave out meals. And going forward, since now we were in this hybrid mode of schools, we had to move the day of the week. So we are now providing meals on Mondays, mornings and lunchtime, pickup times at our middle school and our high schools. So anyone from the district can go to those locations. You do need a meal card now.
Is it for 7 days or what?
Yeah, it's a week's worth of meals.
It's a week's worth of meals,
and it's
7 days.
Breakfast, lunch, supper, and snack. So it's not just the breakfast and lunch that we traditionally would do. We're doing more so that, because we know that if kids are hungry, then they can't focus on their work. So,
well, especially when they're home during the pandemic, and that's what we were worried about as a city originally when the pandemic hit. How are these children eating on the weekends, right? So our city manager helped put together a program for us to assist the school district really, really quickly, and used all of our resources here with our city staff as well to staff all of the distribution sites so that the children could pick up meals for the weekends, because I mean, I have children, they eat me out of house and home. I mean, they just don't stop eating, especially during the pandemic when they're not out doing the physical activity that they should be doing. They're just thinking of food all the time. So
yeah, and I really appreciate that. We weren't getting reimbursed for the weekend meals at the beginning, and I'm so glad.
Neither were we. But we thought it was so
exactly.
important. So
it's
we
important.
appreciate the partnership between the school district
and
the
now
city.
We've got coverage for all 7 days of the week.
Wonderful.
Plus, we've got all that produce coming out of our farm. I mentioned over 50,000 pounds of produce that have been distributed. So our farm is still producing, and normally that food would go to our cafeterias to use in our meals. So instead, the extras, they use some of it for cooking, and the rest of it, we're just distributing it to families.
That farm has been a tremendous resource for the school district, and I can't believe the amount of food. And tell us a little bit, just very quickly, about you still do the dinner program?
We've stopped it now that the kids are back in. So while all the kids were home and we had extra capacity from our chefs and our cafeteria staff, they were once a week doing a meal that they were, a couple of meals. They did a meat meal and a vegetarian meal and the full meal, and they were selling it to anyone in the community who wanted it. In the past, we've done a dinner at the farm.
Right,
so that's
I
where all
remember
this
that,
came from,
right.
and it's beautiful
Right.
to be out in the farm and eating dinner. So this was their way of doing that, and I ordered a lot of them. They're really good. We have great chefs in our district.
Okay, so speaking of being outside, another question I have for you that really came up during the last year was the open space areas surrounding your school sites and the green space areas. So many members of the community had asked us, and I know different council members as well, about the fencing that was placed around each and every school site in the district, which made the green space and the open areas not accessible to the community. But I know that that has changed, and during the pandemic, a lot of people really, because they're quarantined, needed to be outside and walking around and recreating on our parks and school sites and other things. And so that became sort of an issue. But I know that has changed. So tell us about the public access to your school sites now.
Sure. And we've always had rules and signage about when it's okay and not okay to come onto a campus. So we understand we've got beautiful fields and playgrounds that the community wants to use. But while school is in session and there's kids on campus, we need to make sure that they are safe and secure.
Of course.
And so,
right.
So we've always had rules about you can't come on the campus, but you always get the dog walker or somebody who wants to cut through, that sort of thing. And we have to go out and stop that kind of behavior. So it's been in the news about the safety of students nationwide. So we've put fencing around all of our schools, but and we've also had a lot of construction going on at our schools.
I saw
We've
that
taken
as well.
advantage of the schools being closed during the pandemic, so we've gotten some things done. So a lot of the fencing, the gates were closed while we were under construction, but now that that's finishing up, most campuses are now open after hours in the evening. So around 6 o'clock and on the weekends.
On the weekends, okay.
So that
That's
the
great.
community can use the fields and the playgrounds. It was very
Wonderful.
tricky with all the rules during the pandemic, but now that we're getting past that, they should be open.
Well, that's good news for the
And
community.
if they're not, for some reason, you let the district know that there's a problem with the gates.
Call Jody Muirhead
Do not
right
call
away
me.
personally for that.
Well, you
okay?
could.
We'll put her phone number at the end. Just kidding. All right. So some new schools are opening at the end of the summer.
Yes.
They're in the city of San Jose, but part of Santa Clara Unified School District. Can you tell us about them and how they might affect or change the enrollment numbers at some of the other schools in the district, especially North Santa Clara?
Yeah, it's so exciting. We now have names for them. So we've got Abram Agnew Elementary School. We've got Dolores Huerta Middle School. Those are opening up this fall with kindergarten to second grade.
Did you say this fall?
This fall.
I can't believe I was just at the groundbreaking and they're opening this
Well,
fall.
it's taken like 15 years or more to get to this
planning,
point.
But
But the elementary and middle are opening with kindergarten to second grade and sixth grade for the first year, and then they'll build it from there. And then the high school will be open. Kathleen McDonald High School will be open the following year, starting probably with ninth grade or maybe 9th and 10th. And they're going to be beautiful. I mean, I've only been on campus pre-pandemic, and so there was just some basics out there. But I'm seeing lots of pictures, and there's drone footage and such on our website. You can go look at it. But they're just going to be beautiful, and they're well designed, and they've got so many incredible features. All the technology aspects are built in, and maker spaces and collaboration spaces, and it's going to have all the fields that the high school and middle school need, and playgrounds, and it's just going to be incredible. I'm so excited.
So are they going to relieve some of the buildup of some of the
Yes, you'd
other
asked about
schools?
enrollment. So generally, it's going to be students from north of 101 that will be attending. So it'll take some enrollment. The enrollment will be adjusting Hughes Elementary, Montague Elementary, Calajon, K-8, and then George Main are north of 101 schools. So there'll be bits and pieces of areas moving either to the new school or moving between those schools to sort of even out the enrollments. So there'll be some adjustments, but we're allowing for kids to stay at the school that they're at if they don't want to move. So that's all in place.
So will that all happen this summer?
It's happening now.
Oh, it's happening now.
Yeah, the enrollment is pretty much happening or has happened. So those families who are affected, they already know, and they know where they're heading for next year.
All right.
And we're hiring.
Great.
Yeah, it's great.
Great. So I want to move a little bit so we can get to some of our questions if we have any. I don't know, but let me ask you this: online board meetings. So prior to the pandemic, your board meetings were not televised or recorded or Facebook Live or anything like that now, because now we have all this new technology of how we zoom in and zoom out. But your comments about you have a new level of board participation and public participation with your meetings, and a new visibility to the public that you have not had before with the school board. So tell me how that is going with your new level of public participation, and when do you expect to go back in person to board meetings?
Yeah, it's been great. I think having our meetings, they're streamed live. It's on a webinar, so we can get public comment from people in their own voice, or they can email in as well. So I'm hoping that we can continue that as we go forward. So in 2 weeks from today, so that would be April 22nd, is our plan to be back in session. But we're still working on it, of course, but I still want to have the component so that people can watch from home, or they can call in and give comments remotely, because we have parents with little kids, and getting a babysitter, that's a lot of work. So I'm really I'm hoping that we can just continue this going forward. It may not be as nice of a setup as you have in your city council chambers, but
well,
we will do something.
People work really hard here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you a question before we go to Facebook Live and see if there's any questions or comments from our community. A lot has happened in the last year, and in the midst of this health crisis, I want to know how you personally have kept your composure, especially when you're dealing with, as we talked earlier, children, families, educators, parents. What have you done to relieve your job stress, and what keeps you going?
Well, we could never have imagined that we would be having to go through what we've gone through this past year, and I've tried to keep very busy, and it's been easy to do that because there's been so much reading and meetings just to keep up with what's going on in the county and the nation. So keeping really busy has been important to me. I walk.
You walk, good.
I go out and I go for walks.
Lots of walking.
Lots of walking, because it helps me think about things and process things, or just take a break. And I'm listening to more podcasts. I'd never listened to podcasts before, or books on tape, that sort of thing. And
so you're educating yourself through this whole thing.
Oh, I'm a lifelong learner.
Lifelong learner.
That's
right?
what I say. Yep, there's always something new to learn.
Okay, so let's see if we have any questions from Facebook, hopefully for Jody, or if I can answer anything from the city. Okay, we have a question from Linda Pasquale. Linda, I'm hoping to hear Jody's thoughts on reducing class sizes for next school year. Do you know if the board plans to supplement students and teachers by making sure all classes have less students for the 2021-22 school year? Westford, for example, has about 33 students in all of their 4th and 5th grade classes, which is not only too many, but more than the contracted number for teachers.
Great question.
That's a great question.
And class sizes, people don't, maybe they realize, but it's so complicated because it affects your budget. So we really have to think carefully about, how our spending and how we use our money. And it affects our union negotiations, right, because that's part of the contract is about maximum class sizes. But there's no minimum class sizes in our contracts. So the board has clearly been giving direction that, especially as we come out of the pandemic, that our class sizes need to be manageable. How that looks at each site is going to be a little bit different, because some sites may see that they need to add a whole nother class to have class sizes smaller. But in other schools, they may think that there's only some students who need the extra help, and it would be a better use of their funds to just hire like a literacy teacher or a math teacher and pull out those kids who really need the help. So we want to give the flexibility to the schools to manage that, how they spend that money, and how they, whether they want to use it to add a whole new class or targeted. So we know smaller classes are better. I mean, we all recognize that. We want to give that direction. a lot of it is funding and how we can work that out, and spacing too at our school sites.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for that answer. Okay, we have a question from Larry. Why is California lifting our COVID-19 restrictions on June 15th, according to Governor Newsom? Very good question, Larry. So we did get that order or that discussion from the governor, but the city of Santa Clara, what we do is we always follow the county of Santa Clara public health orders. And I know that the governor said that the state will lift the restrictions as long as certain conditions are maintained within the county. So if the certain conditions are maintained within the county, we will follow the governor's order, but more importantly, we will follow the county of Santa Clara's health guidance.
And the schools do the same thing.
Same thing,
where we have to
right?
follow, the county public health as well
County
as
public
state
health,
public
just
health.
like us, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And whatever is, more restrictive for us, that's what we have. That's what we have to do.
Exactly.
So we're
Yeah.
following orders, and unfortunately, that's the way it is right now.
Yeah.
So, Edward, will children be required to wear masks?
So
That's you, Jody.
Yeah, thank you, Edward. So right now, all of our children are required to wear masks. All of our staff are required to wear masks. So whenever they're on campus, they are wearing masks. That's part of the reason why most students go home for lunch, and then older kids can come back, or younger kids would just stay home because of the whole issue with masks. But
Okay.
everyone is wearing masks.
Okay. So here's a comment. These are comments. Linda, we have a kindergartner at her school. Shout out to Miss Lee. They have done an incredible job for our kids.
Thank you
All
for
right,
that.
Miss Lee.
Yeah, thank you for
Oh,
that,
Larry,
Linda.
and I didn't write this. Love you, Mayor Lisa Gilmore. Oh, and Santa Clara. Did you write this? And Santa Clara Unified School District Board President Jody Muirhead.
Thank you.
You very much for those positive comments. We appreciate it.
It's nice to hear after, we've gone through so much, and
Yes.
it's nice to hear.
Well, thank you. So, Jody, I want to thank you for your leadership you provide for our students, parents, and our community. You have a very difficult job. I don't know how people, if people really understand that, but all you have to do is attend a board meeting, and I'm so happy your board meetings are online now, so I can watch them. I would never been able to watch them before. And I'm thinking, wow, you have a really, really tough job. So I want to thank you for everything you do for our community. So what would you like to leave us with? My last question to you is, what is the call to action that you would like to say to us so that our community can continue to help each other through these really, really tough times?
Well, I'd say for the general community, watch out, because the kids are out on the streets again,
Right.
Walking to school. And so we want to make sure they're safe out there. And as everyone gets reacclimated to school zones and crossing guards and kids walking and biking, so just be careful out there. And then I'd say to everyone, please be gracious and know that we're all doing the best we can. Teachers and our classified staff are working so hard through all of this. Please give them a lot of grace and support. And we will get our kids back, and we'll get them to where they need to be. We've got all the plans in place.
And I also want to say the same thing about your school district and how everybody's working so hard, along with our city and our staff and our employees are working really hard. And I really like people to have patience with all of our employees, because we're all following health orders, and they're doing what they need to be doing to keep our community safe. And sometimes it doesn't always make people happy, but it's what it needs to be done to keep everyone safe and secure, because always our first instincts is to protect, our children, our families, and our community as a whole. So that's all we have for today. I know it went really fast.
It goes so fast.
Thank you, Jody, and hopefully you'll join us next time on Mayor at Noon. I'll be back in 2 weeks. As always, stay covered, Santa Clara.